All right, Michelle, welcome to Beyond the Mirror. It's great to have you on the show today. We finally managed to find a time that works for both of us, as we joked about our schedules being difficult to align. Can you let can you let the listeners know about who you are and what it is that you actually do in the shit show that is the fitness industry?
Yeah, so I'm pretty much a fitness vigilante. I'm currently doing my PhD in clinical psychology at the University of Edinburgh. And my PhD topic focuses on disordered eating and body image issues amongst fitness professionals. I've worked as a personal trainer and an online coach for about 5 years now, and I've kind of just seen a shift in disordered eating behaviors becoming normalized and body image issues becoming more prevalent in the fitness industry. And the more we look at the research, a lot of research around disordered eating in sport traditionally focuses on athletes, but nobody is actually looking at fitness professionals themselves as kind of models or gatekeepers of healthy behavior. So that's something I'm really, really passionate about investigating and analyzing because, like you said yourself, the fitness industry is a shit show. And even from working with clients and being a coach myself, I work a lot with clients on improving body image and their relationship with food. And my coaching has kind of pivoted from traditional bro coaching and macro coaching and what was once considered flexible or healthy. Once I kind of started to think critically, found out that that wasn't healthy or flexible at all. So I've kind of just adapted my approach accordingly. And it's just something I'm so incredibly passionate about.
Yeah, which is why, I wanted to get you on because the content that you put out on Instagram is very thought provoking, particularly because, as you said, you're knee deep in this research. And as you said, this kind of like flexible dieting, quote unquote, it was very big when I started my coaching journey. It was very big when I started, my sort of major like body composition journey back in like 2014, 2015. We look at that now and have a lot more research around it and a lot more, oh, okay, well, this flexible dietary restraint model that we thought of is actually showing a lot of signs of rigid restraint and kind of higher levels of emotional eating and all or nothing thinking and kind of all the things that we wanted to avoid with a flexible approach to nutrition.
Yeah, I think the old definition of flexible dieting as decreed by the IFYM crowd is completely defunct because it was never flexible at all. It was like a flexible way to stay within a calorie deficit, which is by its very nature restriction and rigid.
Yeah,
but 100 calories allowance either side, therefore it's flexible.
That was it. It was the plus or minus a couple hundred calories or a percentage of your overall intake or whatever, but as long as you were still hitting a certain gram of protein or there or thereabouts. And yeah,
or you could eat like a protein bar or 30 grams of Cocoa Pops with 125 mils skimmed milk. That is burned into my memory as being like a advertisement for flexible and how you can eat quote unquote whatever you want and get in the shape of your life, because obviously that is all that anyone was ever eating for in peak.
Right. 25-year-old me, it was definitely that way because I'd been so focused on the bodybuilder meal plan that I'd been doing religiously and then had done on and off for a year or so, finding a new way such as IIFYM, where it was like, what, I can have Lion Bar cereal at night as a macro cap. That was life-changing for me at the time, but pushed me further and further into the kind of disordered obsession that we know that brings.
Yeah, it kind of just becomes this, like for me, it was always, how much can I eat for as little calories as possible, which is kind of like volume eating was kind of seen as this like holy grail kind of thing, where it's like you could just pad out your stomach so you would feel physical fullness for as little calories as possible. And then you would get this like sense that you're able to eat as much as you like, but it's totally acceptable because you're always getting leaner. And so long as you're getting leaner, none of these behaviors are ever cause for concern, which, as we know now, they were all cause for concern.
Cause for concern. Yeah, because we were joking about that off air of like the difference between healthy and disciplined. And I think because particularly in sort of toxic male fitness culture and toxic male positivity, masculinity that's pushed out there, so much of what we see as disciplined is actually incredibly disordered. And have you found that in your research that, okay, a lot of the kind of fitness content that we see online is reeking of a lot of disordered habits rather than the whole discipline mindset?
100%. And like this concept of like cognitive rigidity, or like being kind of like incredibly strict, like black and white dichotomous thinking about food either being good or bad or being on and off a plan, is one of the biggest risk factors for full-blown eating disorders and development of disordered eating. And if you add on that to this idea of having an ideal body, which, as we know, for men now is kind of this incredibly muscular body, which is also low body fat as well. So before, it used to be that so long as you had low levels of body fat, that was enough. But now you also have these low levels of body fat and these increased levels of muscularity, which for most people are impossible to achieve without an incredibly strict diet, plus or minus the use of anabolic steroids. For the average man to achieve, it is pretty much impossible without severely impacting your quality of life and your health. And that's something I think that the fitness industry has unfortunately perpetuated, particularly with, we've kind of seen it coming with the rise of this kind of fitness culture and everything masquerading as being healthy and above board because it's quote unquote flexible. But no one ever stopped to question whether it was actually flexible at all. And now I kind of feel like we're kind of seeing the impact of that because it's come a little bit too late for us to kind of stop it in its tracks. And now it's just completely normalized that all men should be aspiring towards this kind of incredibly jacked body. And like, even if you look at like men training for movie roles now, before, if you look at the traditional like 90s rom-com, it was kind of, who's your man in Pretty Woman?
Oh, yeah.
And there's a, and I had seen it's, I think if you look it up now, you can see the contrast between like the ideal rom-com body now, and it's like all of these men now, male movie stars, have to take anabolic steroids, versus if you look at like that the body in the early 90s, late 80s, it was a lot more what you would consider a normal body, or more achievable body. Not necessarily normal because it was still incredibly lean, but it's not this quite clearly anabolic steroid driven physique.
Yes. I think that's one of the biggest things that's pushed the narrative, hasn't it, is the change in what the social ideal is, alongside the kind of growth of the internet, social media, and mobile devices that access the internet, right? Because that wasn't a thing back in the 80s and 90s, like even the early 2000s. That was the growth of that technology, right? Like when I was a teenager, I remember having a Nokia, and then by the time I'm leaving school, you know, iPhones are a thing and Facebook is a thing, and you know, Instagram wasn't out until what, 2012 or whatever. So like, image and media driven content is a new thing. And I think that's the issue that you've said there, Michelle, is that we've got all of these people on social media who have a certain physique. Whether or not they worked hard to get it is one thing, right? Because you'll definitely have people who are genetically more predisposed to a certain body shape, right? For women, you'd see it in terms of like the size of their glutes, or you know, where they hold their shape. And with men, very similar, right? The size of their waist versus the size of their shoulders. Like, we could chat about like childhood habits and sports and stuff all we like, but we know that 75 to 80% of somebody's body is genetically made up anyway, that can then be enhanced by certain behaviors. But with that, like, you know, change of Sean Connery to Daniel Craig, and the, you know, like the Wolverine figure going from just like a standard bloke to Hugh Jackman, you have that mixed in with this fitness culture, and you have this recipe for, yeah, well, it's just totally normal for you to have completely, you know, macro tracked Tupperware meals lined up, to do 2 exercise sessions a day, take loads of supplements, and not, you know, not the hidden extra supplements that would kind of be sold under the counter.
Yeah, and it's all kind of done with this, like, again, it's inherently rooted in capitalism and patriarchy. It's like there is, but like, if we look at the ideal female body, that has changed over time. But in general, so long as a female maintains generally some sort of leanness, yes, certain body parts can come and go in levels of their like societal desirability. But the male ideal has consistently remained this incredibly jacked, like heavily muscular physique. There is no real leeway there. It's like you have to look like this to be the quote unquote ideal man, and there is no other way, and you should be chasing it. And you should be absolutely be chasing it, because otherwise you'll be seen as like not worthy or not enough. And this is because the fitness industry can sell you routines, supplements, diet plans to help you to achieve that, all the while knowing that you'll never ever get there, because like what, 2% of the population can achieve that naturally, genetically.
Mm-hmm.
And the other 98% you need to cough up. And if the ideal body was achievable, there would be no fitness industry.
Right.
It serves the fitness industry for you to be chasing a goal that you can never reach. It's like the body ideal goal at the end of the rainbow. Like, it's always going to move for that very reason, because if you're satisfied in your body, it is very difficult for the fitness industry to sell you plans and supplements that you don't need.
Yeah, and I think that's what it's one thing that I look at the fitness industry now and really cringe at a lot of the time, is that whole like advertising via the physique, right? Of like, I look like this, so can you, and therefore that's why you should buy my program or work with me. And the thing is that as a younger fitness professional, I knew no better than that, right? To be like, this is my body. I used to look like this. I now look like this. I did this to get here. So like, I'll teach you how to do that too. But what we forget is that everybody's body is different. And the lifestyle that one has, it can be a major factor as well, right? Like, as a 25-year-old personal trainer living in London, you know, I'd walk to the tube station, I'd get the tube to work, probably stand on the tube. I would then walk to work. I would do a training session. I would then coach all afternoon on my feet, doing CrossFit coaching. So it's not exactly just standing there counting reps, right? It's displaying movements, it's gymnastics, it's walking around, do another training session, do more coaching, and then do that same route home. You know, it's a very different lifestyle that someone who sits behind a desk all day, has to drive to and from work, and has kids to manage. You know, I can't say to them, look, you need to do 3 to 4 hours of exercise a day and also track all your food. It's just not applicable to the everyday person.
That's it. And then the fitness industry will sell you the lie that it's because the fault that you can't achieve this body is because you don't want it bad enough, or that there's something wrong with you, rather than considering your lifestyle and indeed your goals and whether or not it is actually feasible or something that an individual wants. The fitness industry assumes that everyone wants fat loss. Everyone wants this ideal body because it serves the fitness industry for everyone to want this ideal body.
But do you think that's because this is something that I have a conversation with a lot of people, right? Is this whole what you find attractive has been brainwashed into you because of your upbringing and the societal, you know, you don't have your own thoughts on this basically. And do you think that it's great that we're having more relationship with food, body image chat, you know, body neutrality, body acceptance? There's a good discourse coming on of that, right? But the clapback against that is loud as well, right? From the gym bros of this is just laziness, this is just discipline, you're glorifying obesity, you know, you need to want it more, you only didn't lose weight because you did it wrong, you didn't change your lifestyle, you didn't change your habits. And do you think that because of the kind of push of the desired norm as it is now, that will just become, do you think that will win? Do you think that will be like where we all have to gravitate towards because of that social media, you know, your body is your business card, the leaner body gets more desirability, more social currency. We all want that and think it's attractive. How do we genuinely fight against that?
I think it's definitely something that's incredibly difficult, but also, and it's incredibly difficult to market your business if your business is not your body on an integrated platform like Instagram or TikTok, which is probably the most widespread or widely used platforms by coaches to get clients and display their results. So it is more challenging in that sense, but I don't think that it is impossible. And I think a lot of the major coaches now that are kind of still quite popular now have turned around and said, actually macro tracking was the worst point in my life, or I was a fitness influencer and I actually had an eating disorder and a crippling steroid addiction. So I think just because of the nature of engaging in those kind of really rigid routines and how all consuming they can be, you can tell when someone's stuck in that mindset and when someone has come out the other side of it. And a lot of people are coming out the other side of it. And I think one of the benefits to that is more people are becoming aware of the risk of engaging in these really strict behaviors, but also seeing the benefits of taking another approach. So a lot of people now are talking about body image and relationship with food, which is absolutely fantastic. And it is great to see people being encouraged to think differently. And yes, it might be more challenging to gain instant traction because you can't just post your glutes and say, this is how I beat binge eating, because you should be in jail for that. But, you know, people, when you generally transform someone's relationship with food and how they think about things, that is what will get you results. Those clients will sing your praises the loudest because you have transformed the way someone thinks about food, how they live their life, rather than just their body fat percentage. So do I think it is more challenging? 100%. And I do think there is a small shred of optimism for the fitness industry, simply because there are so many coaches now that are starting to become more aware and be educated about disordered eating and relationship with food, because there is no education about disordered eating or body image issues in any PT course I've ever done. The first time I ever heard about the female athlete triad or relative energy deficiency in sport, which is something that most coaches should be aware of, was 3 months into my master's in sports and exercise nutrition. And for me, you shouldn't be at master's level before you're being introduced to something that most of us are going to see at baseline as coaches. If you how can you screen for something you know nothing about?
Yeah. I mean, that was similar to my journey, and that it took me to precision nutrition level 2 to kind of go through the module of disordered eating, to be like, holy shit, I resonate with a lot of the characteristics here in terms of the kind of mindset as well as the actions, because obviously mindset and intention can be more important than an action, but of course a lot of the time the thought process drives the action. But I mean, the red S and things I was aware of with my course before that, but it was also a case of that's never going to happen. I'm still overweight. I still need to lose weight in order to increase my performance. That was kind of my mindset to it at the time. And I do get you that because of the shift, particularly with people of our generation and coaches and things, you see a lot of the most popular coaches doing that. Younger generation kind of TikTok and Instagram kind of looks a bit more of a shit show, being honest, from this kind of stuff that I've seen. But I think the one thing that I think with clients that struggle with their body image is probably this whole sense of, well, I'll be more confident when I'm leaner because of the kind of social currency of the body and their own thought of, well, if that's more attractive, then I will be happier when I'm leaner. And that drives a lot of people's fat loss goals. And I think now it also drives a lot of people's relationship with food goals, because they'll see coaches that have a certain body type and they have, relationship with food, relationship with your body. And they're like, okay, so if I work on that, then I'll look like that. How can the layperson sort of overcome that mindset of they'll be happier when they're leaner?
To me, I always kind of look at that as this idea of conditional self-acceptance. So I'll be happier when I'm leaner, I'll be happier if I'll be confident in my body when I'm leaner. Not necessarily true, because you are literally placing a condition on your own happiness or your own confidence, and you're kind of capping yourself there, because it will never be good enough. Versus you can turn around and reframe that and say, I can work towards being happier in my body now. There is no end destination where all of a sudden you're lean and things are different and you get your dream job, you get the dream partner and you never ever struggle again. Having a dream body, quote unquote, if it's going to cost you the rest of your life, is a fucking nightmare. If sure, you can absolutely get this dream body, but it may not be in alignment with the life that you actually want to live. So for example, if you're a woman and you value having a flat stomach and that is your ideal body, because that is what's constantly marketed to women, for you to gain a totally flat stomach, you may have to engage in such chronic energy restriction that you'll lose your menstrual cycle. If your goal is to have a family, that is not in alignment with this ideal life. For men, it might be, I want to be really successful in my job. I want to get this promotion. And once I'm leaner, I'll have more confidence to go for it. You are so chronically energy deprived, you cannot perform well at work. You're never getting that promotion. And rather than placing these kind of aesthetic restrictions or making your life have this kind of body composition minimum threshold entry point, why would you not focus on bringing in those habits and behaviors into improving your life now, rather than waiting for yourself to look visually better, quote unquote, however that looks in your head, before you start taking action towards building a life that you want?
Yeah, really great points. I think what people forget a lot of the time as well is they look back at their past self with rose-tinted glasses. I know that was a big thing for me, was you look back and you're like, man, I look great in that photo. And I'm wearing a certain t-shirt or I'm a certain weight. I need to get back there, because then I'll be happy. Very much forgetting that in that moment, there was a lot of unhappiness there as well.
That's it. And that's something I think people need to be very mindful of when they're consuming content from coaches that use kind of these progress photos as sole markers of transformations or someone's change in mindset. You cannot represent someone's mindset through a visual medium. That's simply just not the case. And for a lot of people, when they are at their leanest or they have these dream bodies, there is a lot going on that makes the rest of their life nothing to aspire towards. Like the leanest I've ever been in my life was nothing to do with disordered eating for once, in terms of engaging in really restrictive dieting. But it was after I had surgery on my back, and I was so anxious on so many painkillers that I just had no appetite, and like I was a waif. A strong gust of wind would have taken me away. And I remember thinking, I was like, I literally have this quote, I've been the leanest I've ever been in my life. And I remember thinking, it doesn't matter a fucking difference, because I can't walk, can't live my normal life. And it's just taking over everything. And this, I think people have this false like misconception that once I am in this ideal body, I will be happy. But there is no guarantee. All that you can guarantee is that you will be leaner. You can't guarantee all of the other conditions around it.
Well, and also a lot of the time when people want to get leaner, it's because they're, as you said, they're basing their confidence in their looks, which is then going to be a wavering scale, right? And probably a never meeting target. They're probably also comparing themselves to how somebody else looks, to be like, okay, well, if I looked more like that person, then I'd be happier. But that's just like saying, going to a hairdresser and going, I want that person's haircut or whatever. It's like, you're never going to get the exact same haircut, because you've got a different shaped head and you've got different follicles and all the rest of these things. And it's never, you're kind of always putting your self-worth into something else, rather than finding it in the sort of qualities and the characteristics that make you uniquely yourself.
Exactly. And it's just, as someone once told me, it's like when you're comparing yourself to other people, no one's at home looking after you. You're out living in other people's head, and you're kind of neglecting your own self. You're too worried about like what other people look like or how I look in relation to other people, that you actually take the focus off yourself, which can lead to this kind of disordered eating and body image issues. And ultimately, you will realize that you have let a lot of your life pass you by simply because you've been living for other people, or viewing yourself and your own life through the lens of how other people view you.
Yeah, that's really important. I think what you said there, you've been living your life through this sort of other lens of kind of constantly worrying what other people think of you, or constantly wanting validation from them, or trying hard to make yourself look a certain way for that kind of validation or confidence. And as you said, it's like, well, the only person that can give you that is yourself. And so you're going to waste all of this time kind of on the wrong stuff. What do you say to people who approach you and they're like, look, Michelle, I get your point about relationship with food and body image, it sounds nice, but I want to lose fat first, and then I'll focus on my body image?
To me, I think those people, and again, it's the same. It's like, I know I want to work on my relationship with food, but I want to be a little bit leaner first. But some of the core behaviors around improving relationship with food and improving body image cannot be done as long as you are dieting. And to me, dieting for body image is just kicking the can down the road, because you're just creating a bigger kind of chasm between self-acceptance and where you are now. And ultimately, dieting will not bring you closer. And by taking a brief hiatus from dieting is something you can always come back to. But by building a positive relationship with food and a positive relationship with your body, you carry out these quote unquote health-seeking behaviors that you diet towards. So you will still eat regular filling meals. You will still hit your fruit and veg target. You'll still hit your protein goals, things like that for the most part. But these things don't take over and run your life. And they're not done simply because they bring you closer to this ideal body. You treat yourself with respect because you're a person that is worthy of being respected, not because you're a person that wants to be 5 kilos down for the summer. Like, the way I like to get people to kind of reframe it is, you need to be able to do these behaviors for the rest of your life and not 12 weeks. So by taking off this kind of narrow lens of, I have to be a certain body composition before I'm worthy of treating myself with respect, you kind of open yourself up more, or give yourself more of a chance of these behaviors becoming your new normal, because you're not imposing these restrictions on yourself. That I'm only a person that's worthy of being taken care of if I fit in this body composition.
Yeah. Well, and you see that, so as you said about like, you want to do a certain level of behaviors and respect for the rest of your life. Like, I think the kind of cutting and bulking of the bodybuilding world, particularly online, then drifted into kind of coaching, particularly with the coaching around and the science around sort of like fat loss and short-term dieting because of, body's reactions and kickbacks. And then it becomes a case of, well, I've got a holiday in 6 weeks, I'm going to do a cut. And then you've got this constant feeling of like, well, I'm only ever going to feel confident and happy if I'm, that lean or a couple of pounds down or whatever. So you have this constant oscillation between, well, I did a cut for that holiday, and then on the holiday, I ate and drank everything because I'd been restricting so much for that 6 weeks. Now I feel bloated and horrible, and now I need to do another cut. And you're just constantly in this restrict and binge cycle, effectively, for want of a better word.
Ultimately, and like the thing with working on your relationship with food and working on your body image is that holidays and stuff just become normal. You don't get thrown by them because you take away this inherent good or bad labeling around food, or good and bad labeling around your body. There is no kind of entry point. You don't have to earn a holiday by starving yourself. And a lot of people kind of get a bit panicked about this. It's like, well, if you work on your relationship with food, you won't want to diet. And that's hard for people because a lot of people want to diet because they think that will improve their body image.
Yeah.
So by improving your body image, you will be more likely to engage in these healthy, quote unquote, health seeking behaviors like nourishing your body and exercising. And it doesn't become this thing of, I have to eat well and train hard because I have a holiday. It's I get to eat well and train hard because that's something that's important to me, because my body is important to me and living a healthy life is important, rather than I need to exercise and lose weight because I'm a terrible person. This is the only way I'm worthy of love. You know, this is like, it's harder to take this approach because it does involve looking a little bit beyond 12 weeks or beyond. I think when you're so dissatisfied in your body, you do get the kind of tunnel vision, and it does become incredibly all-consuming and lonely and isolating to be unhappy in your body. And you do get the sense that no one understands you and like the only way out is to diet. But if you can take a step back and look at the long term, building respect for your body and your relationship with food will serve you much more and pays itself back over 10 times. Versus dieting, it might work for 12 weeks. You might be able to sustain it for 6 months. But ultimately, it's kicking the can down the road and is more likely to lead to a worsened relationship with food and your body rather than prioritizing your body.
Yeah. I love what you said about you eat a certain way and you train a certain way because you enjoy that and these things are important to you. It becomes much more values-led than led for a certain outcome that is physique driven or a weight on the scale or whatever. And as you said, if you focus on those things, you're just going to constantly be stuck in that cycle of not really ever feeling content about the way that you look. There's always going to be another another benchmark. You're going to struggle much more with yo-yo dieting, right? With binging and restricting, with scale increases and decreases going up and down and I think that's what people don't understand, is that when you have this obsession with yourself and this, as you said, this poor self-confidence and you're obsessed about your body and you're unhappy about your body, as you said, it can be isolating and lonely. You feel like the solution is to change your body, but really it's to change your body image, because the low body image is what's causing the kind of inconsistent eating and exercise habits, not the body itself. So people think, well, I'll get the body I want because then that'll help me eat better, but really it's working on your mindset around your body that helps you eat more consistently and train more consistently. It's like, it can be difficult to get your head around.
Yeah, it's the same with kind of general body image coaching. It's like, the more you work on your body image, the less you think about your body. And a lot of people find that difficult to grapple with because they get into working on their body image because all they think about is their body. And it's basically just reminding you or just encouraging you to look at your body beyond what it looks like and all that it allows you to do, and that can be quite challenging for people because most of us generally only look or view our body through a lens of either good or bad or parts of our body that we like and don't like.
Well, yeah. And with that, it's the way that we think about our body until we start working on body image is driven by us body checking in the mirror, the clothes that we're wearing, the photos that we see, or the scale weight. And it's also internally driven in the perception sphere, rather than, as you said, the functionality and the appreciation and the viewing yourself as much more than just the way that your body looks. We just get so stuck and obsessed within that, forgetting that the way that we see ourselves is very different to how other people see us. The scale does not define our kind of morality as a person. And the fitting of clothes, like, oh Jesus Christ, the diversity that's out there in terms of sizes and brands, not to mention if you're just going through a bloated period, you might not be able to button up those shorts, but you might be able to, by Thursday, through doing nothing else.
Yeah, and especially because scale weight is so liable to fluctuate, even if you are looking at trends over time. Like off the top of my head, fiber, hydration, stress, sleep, and these are just four straight off the back that can hugely influence your scale weight on a day-to-day basis. Even if we are looking at trends over time, why would you put so much stock in something that is so liable to fluctuate, even if you are measuring daily or sometimes multiple times per day, as I've known some bodybuilders to do, just to track change over time? Why would you put so much faith in something, or let something that's so liable to go up and down determine your worth on a day-to-day basis? Because even if you are looking at this long term, you are looking at something that has gone up and down so many times in a day, literally spun you 180 degrees multiple times per day. That's hugely going to chip away at your self-confidence and your worth.
Oh yeah, and it's just that thing of like, oh well, I'm always happier if I'm a few pounds lighter, and it's like, well, just dehydrate yourself, eat fewer carbs, and take a couple of laxatives, and before you know it, you'll be a few pounds down. And yeah, okay, you feel less bloated and all the rest of it, but nothing's really changed.
Exactly.
It's the self-perception of that makes it feel like there's been such a drastic difference that everyone's going to see.
And ultimately, something I think that's really important for people to realize, because most of us, when it comes to viewing ourselves or measuring ourselves, it's always kind of these measurements. But if you're to look at people that are important to you in your life and why they are important to you, because they are lean, because they are jacked, or their scale weight should never ever comes into it, if at all. Like anybody that's important to you or adds value to your life, how they add value or why they add value is absolutely nothing to do with how they look. Or if it is way down on the list of priorities.
Yeah, that's a really great point, because then, particularly if you're saying, well, I wish I looked like that person or whatever, it's like, well, if that's a celebrity or a personal trainer, as you said, you have no idea what is going on behind the scenes and how they're living their life. But then if you think about people who you actually like spending time with and have close relationships with, you think nothing of their physique. And I think this is where weight bias is so much of the issue, right? Is that people are so terrified of being judged by others. They'll judge themselves because they judge their morality based on the scale. They think it's a reflection of their discipline and how good of a person they are. And that is, again, derived from that discipline, work harder, you've got to want it more. If you're fat, it's your fault. It's about personal responsibility. It's about hard work. It's about discipline. And because of all of us being brought up with the whole, overweight characters in cartoons and movies are always the ones that are eating too much. They're dunces. They're unattractive. That's why we get such that fear, right? Is that we can't let ourselves get that way, because then we will be judged negatively by others. And particularly with women, I think it's always the kind of like the mum or the grandma on their shoulder that are like judging what they're eating and how they're looking, because of that kind of grip of diet culture that is on society.
100%. And I also think it is incredibly challenging for men, and men also face the added barrier of being unable to talk about things for fear of being perceived as weak, because obviously we know that male vulnerability is something that is not actively encouraged. Everyone is told to, just speak up about it, or it's okay to talk. But when people actually talk, they often face extreme stigma, judgment. So especially for men that are struggling with disordered eating or eating disorders, because there is this perception that eating disorders or disordered eating or even just body image issues are like a woman's issue. So even in terms of research, most of the disordered eating diagnostic tests, or one of the gold standards is this eating disorder examination questionnaire, which it has been derived from data that has been predominantly female based. So how they'll assess for disordered eating is based on typically female presentations. So as a result, male disordered eating has gone underrepresented and under researched up until recently, with the advent of this drive for muscularity scale, which has incorporated male presentations of body image. So men kind of face the stigma, first of all, of not being able to talk about it, but also the fact that researchers are trying to play catch up with this predominantly female based research.
Yeah. No, I'm really glad you made that point, because of that's part of the toxic masculinity piece. And particularly what I've seen in Instagram recently, the more that I've talked about body acceptance and weight neutrality, and putting relationship with body and food first before physique, the more I've seen that discourse around, kind of just like being, it's just not a thing if you're disciplined. It's not a thing if you're, you're clearly lazy and unmotivated, and, oh, I don't have an eating disorder, I'm just disciplined. Like, that's not something that guys get. Like, you just got to work harder, bro. And it's very poisonous. One thing I wanted to ask was, in your research or in the way that you see things, I think weight stigma between guys can often be pushed towards, oh, it's just, it's just a bit of jokes, it's just a bit of banter, it's just a bit of, whatever, like, we're just teasing, we don't really mean it. And that kind of stigma, it's so brushed off to be like, well, don't be so sensitive, we're just having a joke. If you take that badly, that's on you, rather than actually taking responsibility for that being quite damaging to someone's relationship with food and therefore their behaviors afterwards.
Yeah, like weight-related teasing, particularly in adolescence and childhood, is one of the most powerful influences on someone's relationship with food and their body growing up, regardless of gender. I think most people can remember the first unsolicited comment they received about their body, regardless of their gender. And that can be one of the main drivers of disordered eating. And it can also be a huge barrier for people seeking help, because, again, they're not being taken seriously. They're being mocked for even, first of all, unsolicited comments at all, or for struggling with something or taking offense to something. Being upset by something is seen as something to laugh at, which, again, is absolute lunacy to me. Particularly in the gym culture, because a lot of people are so heavily tied up to their physique, and their physique is everything to them. So they find it difficult to believe that other coaches can see beyond that, and that other people are living a healthy and balanced life without being so attached to the scale, without constantly chasing this ideal body. So I think how I look at people like that would comment these kind of, I know you receive some god awful, horrific things about your body unsolicited.
Mm-hmm. Still going.
Yeah. Why would it not? Why would anybody ever stop and take accountability? But to me, it's just, these people cannot see, they cannot comprehend that there is a life beyond calorie tracking and chasing this ideal body, because for them, that is their life. They cannot see beyond it, because the cognitive dissonance is real. They don't want to see beyond it. And it doesn't mean that their comments are in any way acceptable. But it is something I think I would always feel quite sorry for individuals like that, because it's such a narrow-minded view of, first of all, humanity. And also, it's just the strangest thing ever to publicly comment about someone's body that you don't even know.
Their body, and then clearly their habits or their lifestyle or their relationship with their spouse and what drives their motivation and all the rest of it, right? And it's like, I think the thing that makes these things worse is, like, we're not saying that this, as you said, actually certain physiques for some people are genuinely unachievable. Or they're only achievable through very extreme, very disordered habits, which a lot of these people are stuck with, that they are actually parading as discipline, right? And nobody's saying that, okay, nobody can lose a few pounds if you track your calories. That's not real. It's not real. No one's saying that. What we're saying is that to do that might be a really big sacrifice and might therefore be unsustainable, even if you do all of your things of trying to change your lifestyle or whatever, because really you are a human being that has relationships with other people and, a certain lifestyle that will dictate a best practice for you in terms of your habits around food and exercise. And then the best body that you have is a result of the kind of best middle ground that you can find. And that's very individual and shouldn't be dictated by society or what somebody else thinks is discipline or hard work.
And you'll always get this stupid strawman argument of, like, you're glorifying obesity. But to me, that just comes down to someone assuming health based on someone's appearance. Because so long as you're incredibly lean, you can get away with incredibly disordered behaviors, which is basically the majority of these individuals that are commenting this kind of thing, saying you're glorifying obesity. And yet these are the individuals that are afraid to eat anything outside of a Tupperware for fear that it'll go 2 grams over their macros that are actually inaccurate anyway.
Yeah.
Like, maybe we are glorifying obesity, but they're glorifying disordered eating and body image issues. And you can be healthy or seek health regardless of your size. But you can be disordered eating it, or you can be disordered in your thought process around food at any size in that same vein too.
Yeah, Yeah, and they're the ones glorifying eating a very, very narrow selection of food because they deem that as the healthy food, and actually are missing out on a massive variety of food and nutrients that can be found outside of those 6 Tupperware meals a day.
And all you have to do is look at this concept of cheat meals, where it's like someone that's incredibly lean will showcase their 10,000 calorie post-show diet, versus if I was someone in a larger body to post my 10,000 calorie diet, the comments I would receive would be completely different, simply based because people would make an assumption based on my body composition alone.
Oh, but you see that all the time with fitness professionals who go like, this is my body tensed and this is my body relaxed, and they're still in a slim body.
Oh, it's like exorcist levels of contortion trying to generate a single roll.
Or just like they're sat down with their rolls over their pants and be like, rolls are normal. It's like, yeah, but if I posted that, I'd be like, you know, people would comment the horrible things that they have been commenting on my recent content. And so, you know, this acceptance isn't contingent on a socially acceptable body. I think you see that a lot of the time with people who are quite underweight who then find the gym and then progress. You know, they post a lot about how they're now like focusing on their performance, but it's still, you know, tensed shots and glute shots and muscular shots. It's still an obsession with the physique. It's just changed.
And you can be incredibly tied to numerical outcomes, even if they are in terms of performance. I saw a great post from Sasha Lucas, who posted about performance and training for performance. And like, if your performance goals based on whether you perform good or bad completely affect your headspace, that's not healthy at all. And people just assume because I say I'm training for performance, I'm healthy, or this is something that's aspirational. But like, again, you can be training for performance and you miss a lift, ruins your whole day. You go home, you lose a bodybuilding show because you're technically training to perform in a bodybuilding show. That takes over your whole life.
Yeah.
You know, like not all performance goals. You saying I'm training for performance isn't a carte blanche for disordered eating behaviors to go unchecked.
No, exactly. I can totally attest to that in my former CrossFit days as well. It was constantly driven by, is my workout time fast enough? Is my lift fast enough? Can I do as many muscle ups? There was a body weight goal because of the kind of gymnastics, you know, body weight to strength ratio. Oh, you're only strong because you're big. Fucking hate that. I hate that phrase. And
like literally, you're strong because you're strong.
You're strong because you're strong, right? Like, you know, fat mass can't contract. So it's like, that's not going to help me squat. And if anything, if I'm squatting more body weight as well as more barbell weight, it's overall more weight. So
the brain mind cannot comprehend that, though.
I had my reel about mass moving mass that got so many great comments. It was a really fun, and I think that's the kind of mindset I have to have now, is kind of thick skin to kind of, if I don't have these conversations and this discourse, then who will? You know, like, people always ask me, why do you fight back to people in the comment section or whatever? Like, surely they're just baiting you. And I'm like, I don't actually think they're baiting me. I think they're genuinely trying to prove a point, and therefore I need to try and prove mine, because somebody's got to argue back, otherwise nothing will ever change.
Exactly. And like, you can have a discussion so long as people are being respectful. You know,
respectful debate. Yeah,
exactly. And like, some of the best discussions I've had with people have been with people that have not agreed with my content, but it has been respectful, versus one to say, you haven't got a clue, you don't know anything, you're glorifying obesity. I'm like, well, there's no point in trying to engage with you, because this is not an open dialogue. This is you just firing accusations that are, first of all, wrong, and you're not going to listen. You know, I posted about transformation photos, and I had reviewed a study that looked at the impact of transformation photos, and somebody commented and said, oh, I've done my own research and I've actually found the complete opposite. This is completely wrong, complete fabrication. So I asked them for said reference. Obviously, they deleted their comment and blocked me. And then I should have known again. Like, I went onto their page and like, it was a bodybuilding shot, like the profile picture. They were selling fat burners. So really, it's on me for trying to engage with that. But I think, like, there is no point in surrounding yourself with people that constantly agree with you. But in that same vein, you also don't need to surround yourself with people that are disrespectful for the sake of this like balance.
Yeah. I'll always comment once or twice, even if I can tell they're being disrespectful, because again, I don't want to let it look like I don't stand up for certain things, like of what I believe in, or particularly for other people who are in, you know, bigger bodies than I am. But as you said, then respectful discussion can be really great, because I think what we forget in this industry is that all of this is incredibly complex, and we've got research, okay, and we've got meta-analyses and systematic reviews, and we've got placebo, double-blind, randomized controlled trials, but there's also so much of this shit we just can't work out, right? Like when there's research papers done on diet and exercise interventions, there's huge variations on the effect on the population, and you can't just say, well, that's down to adherence. You can't just be the coach that's like, well, it's clearly they're lying, they're underreporting, it's adherence, it's whatever, like it's clearly simple, they just need to work harder and not lie. It's like, no, this is a really, really complex thing that we're working on, because the human body's complex and evolution is complex, and all of this stuff is far beyond our, we've got a decent understanding, but it's very complex. One thing I'll ask before we knock this on the head: a layperson scrolling social media, how can they be aware of what is clearly incredibly disordered habits paraded as discipline and healthy, so that they can steel themselves against sort of who they follow and the advice they take and the, I guess, not the standards they set for themselves, but I guess the things they aspire toward?
For me, I would say it always kind of comes down to your own individual values and like getting clear about what's important to you and the type of person that you want to be. So if you want to be a person that thinks less about their body, or you want to stop chasing these kind of ideal bodies, but all you follow are these ideal bodies or coaches that promote ideal bodies, for me, I think that's probably where you'll see a little bit of a misalignment. So it might come down to maybe just muting or unfollowing certain accounts, or even just adding in other accounts outside of fitness into your feed, just to kind of diversify that a little bit. In terms of what coaches say, then I think you'll get a good, like, if the like first 9 photos on someone's grid are all of them physique photos, whilst they're also telling you that how you look isn't everything, and yet their feet is everything. I think that's always something I think that's important to be critical of. But also what a coach uses to measure progress, or how they promote their clients, or what are the wins for their client, what is important to that coach, and is that something that's important to you?
Great. Yeah, thank you. I always find that funny when it's like transformation photo, physique shot, photo shoot shot of themselves, and be like, we're all about body image and relationship with food here, guys. You are more than how you look. And you're like,
but not me though. I'm all about how I look.
Really? I've not done that, but obviously I have been the person parading their kind of best shot photos and all the rest of it. So I jest because I've been there, and I think that's always
what is it, punching up instead of punching down.
Yeah, and again, it's I help people genuinely improve their relationship with food and their body, so it's helping them do that, and as you notice the danger signs as per that. So thank you for that. Michelle, where can people find more about you? Mostly Instagram, I guess. You've also got great Substacks.
Yeah, Instagram is probably the best place to get me, and that's probably where you'll see all of my link tree for the rest of my stuff. So that's Michelle Carroll 1, and then the body image research that I do is Body Image and Nutrition Review, which you can get on Substack as well.
Yeah, I'll link to those in the show notes, because I subscribe to those and they are good reads. And yeah, I just appreciate you taking the time to come on. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Fantastic.